just received the Dark Summer literally in the post moments ago. Very timely, having just completed Atlantic War. Also received revised counter sheets for 1914 Offensive Art Outrance, which is a huge motivation to crack this open. I've had this for so long, and it is such an amazing system. Twilight in the East, Offensive Art Outrance, and of course Serbian Mus Sturbian. Just a brilliant system that really focus your attention on supply and supply paths and supply logistics without taking anything away. Supply rules can often be frustrating and boring. In the 1914 series, it is at the forefront of your consideration, but it creates some beautiful decisions. So that's an incentive. This all came from GMT in the same package. The revised mounted map boards for and replacement cannons. I didn't realise they were replacement cannons for airborne over Europe. I forgot the name of the series. It is The Last 100 Yards, of course. It's sitting up in my shop, I had to check the name of it. But of course, this is why I'm doing this video. This is what I'm excited about. It is a beautiful box cover. Ted Raicer. My favourite game, I think I've said it a lot of times, is Paths of Glory. And I have such admiration for Ted and his work for so long. Paths of Glory has been my favourite game for at least 14 years maybe. I think I mentioned just the other day, it is one of few games that I rate 10 out of 10. It has a big learning curve. A lot of people play it once, hate it, become frustrated because they lost the entire Western Front because they left a gap open or whatever. So let's look at this. This is Ted Raicer's design, D-Day in the Battle for Normandy. I'll show you before. I do know a little bit about this. I've looked through the rulebook online on GMT Games. I've looked at the map and the counters. So I do have a sense of what this is all about. But let me run you through it. I'm going to pick up the camera and come down a bit closer so you can get a better look at what we've got here. I hope this is okay. So it is about, what is that, about 1 3/4. It's a relatively narrow GMT box, relatively thin, compared to, it's fair to say, it's a thinner box than GMT standard. Sorry about that, dropped the mic. Let me pick this up a bit so you can get a better view. Alright, so we're looking at the Dark Summer, Normandy 1944, D-Day in the Battle of Normandy from June 6th to August 21st. We have a playbook. We have, it begins with okay, let's have a look. Extended example play, designer's notes, can sheet images and index. So this is more just a general learning guide showing how the game works in practice. Beautifully illustrated, very, very clear images. Historical photographs to go with it. Moving through Bayeux, Allied infantry in the rubble of Caen, down the bottom there. Designer's notes by Ted. I'll be honest, I don't often read designer's notes, but I'm very interested in what he has to say about this. Counter sheet images, and then an index. We have the rules of play, and I'll return to this in a moment because I've already looked through this. I will show you this. We have some player aid cards. Nice to see a nice looking CRT, weather effect on movement, and the Cherbourg combat table, and then terrain effects, very clear terrain effects chart on the reverse with movement costs, combat effects, and additional notes as reminders. We have 2 of those. Then we have this player aid card 2, which is more general information about the sequence of play, action sheet availability, replacements table, rebuilding units table, general rules reminders, which is nice, and victory conditions. So, having seen that, I will point out that this is a chit draw activation system. The allied player typically has the initiative on a turn, but generally you will draw activation markers from a cup. And so here we have American units. 82nd Airborne regiments, parachute infantry regiments. This is, I should point out, let me get the map. So I'll come back to this in a moment, but let me kind of show you the map to put all this in context, give you a sense of scale, give you a sense of sort of what we're looking at here. So here we have this Normandy region. You'll notice the Cotentin Peninsula is cut off and Cherbourg is sort of abstracted by this Cherbourg box. So too, down the bottom here, it actually extends to Avranches. And you have the Brittany box also abstracted. Keep in mind, this goes through to early August. So the activity in the northern sort of end of the peninsula is all abstracted. You've got Falaise out here. This is the opposite end of the scale compared to Atlantic War, which I've just played through, or it's certainly far removed from The Greatest Day, the Green Tactical series. For context, The Greatest Day covers this area here on a massive scale. So yeah, we're looking at sort of brigade level, regiment level, large hexes. I don't know what the scale of the hexes are. I didn't specifically read about that. I'll see if it's just briefly covered in the introduction to the rules of play. No, I can't see it detailed or summarise the map. No, and there's no, I can't see a scale. Anyone that sees it, yell out and let me know. But I mean, if you know Normandy, you'll kind of, let me pick the camera up and give you a big overview of this map. There you go. It is very, very clear and beautiful. And already I'm kind of shaking because of all this bocage, the PTSD of working through that in Atlantic War. Tell you what, my strategy is going to be to shift out here to the clear terrain. I know that from the start. Just kidding. So this is a map, and it looks beautiful, folks. I don't know if I'm really conveying that through the camera, but very, very clear. Terrain features nice subtle edge shading around the edge of the hexes. Clearly defined features. Certainly a lot of bocage, but it's not just a massive bocage. There's a nice weaving of sort of the marshes, the forests here. There's a distinction between forests and what they call woods. Obviously bocage, you've got hills here. Towns and cities. There's a distinction between towns and cities. And what else? I haven't pointed out the eastern exit box, way at the top here. We were talking just yesterday, I think, about what designers are doing to accommodate or address sort of edge of map restrictions. And I think Ted has done this without having played this yet, but I've read the rules and he's done it well with these sort of abstracted Cherbourg box, Brittany box, eastern exit box. Yeah, it's a nice way to address what happens when you get to the edge of the map. So, brigade level, yeah, you've got then the 82nd Airborne, 101st Airborne, 501st, 502nd, 506th. We have various control markers, wave markers, exit markers, beach open, closed markers, some air support. There are various types. We do have, here we go, carpet bombing, and then the tactical support, naval support as well. Some units will have, basically they have a movement value and a combat value. Some will have an attack and a defense and then a movement. So you'll see these airbornes are broken up into attack and defense, whereas most of the units are just combat, attack and defense are the same, and movement. There are obviously Americans, British. I'm sure I read that there are also French, Polish. Yep, here we are. The Poles are down here. Where are the French? Here we are. French, second French. And then we have the Germans. We have strong points, Ost troops. We have Cherbourg defences. There are weather chits, which is an interesting idea. Instead of rolling this dice and hoping I don't get a 6, we'll be drawing a chit and hoping I don't draw a storm chit. I don't know how many of these are put in the cup, but the fact that there's only one storm chit and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 chits in total it makes me think that maybe, yeah, there's a 1 in 9 chance of drawing storms, which is, yeah, lowish. What have we got? We've got the SS units down the bottom here. 709th Defenders, 716, Fallschirmjäger, yep, there. This game also incorporates support units, and I believe these type of units here are the support units. Yeah, so there you go, just the 2 counter sheets. So relatively low density. Then we have a nice die and the box components. So let me return, I'll put these sheets out so you can have a look at those. Let me return to the rules of play. As I said, I've looked at these online. Here's the information on the weather and the action chits, the combat support markers, and you have the US tank destroyer support. We then have the German, I just showed these, Nebelwerfer, artillery support, assault gun support, things like that, various game markers. Here we have details on the sort of combat factor and movement, and I said some have attack, some have defense separated. Yeah, reduced strength is pretty common for GMT these days, that sort of reverse side. Typical NATO symbology. I mentioned the different nationalities, French, Polish, Canadians, I don't think I pointed out, sorry about that. Yeah, a lot of definition. This is I think a 24-page rulebook. The back page is just reminders. I'll return to the rules in a moment. We really start, this is set up in Victory on page 7. There are some instant, sudden death victory conditions, basically to prevent a historical play, basically, to force the Americans to drive towards Cherbourg, to force the Germans to actually defend the region. They're just kind of like keeping people in the region. But generally, victory will be determined by control of key objectives and victory points. Sequence of play is fairly straightforward. You've got a weather chit draw, replacements, and then the action phase. And as I said, in the first round, the other player is the active player and plays his initiative chit. And then in subsequent rounds, you draw chits from the cup. Beyond that, I'll quickly flick through this. I won't go through the rules in detail. You've got stacking, zones of control, weather effects, replacements, reinforcements. The action rounds are pairing the cup with the chits for each specific turn. I should point out too, I didn't really highlight. Let me just pause here and bring the map back around and show you the turn record track. So you'll notice that the turns are kind of divided into roughly weekly periods. So you've got, you've got action rounds throughout the turn, but the turns go June 2, June 3, June 4, and then July 1, 2, 3, 4, then August 1, 2, 3. They're not the dates, they're kind of the weeks in that month. And yeah, you break each turn down into a series of actions. So return the rulebook, action rounds as part of these sort of weeks. Brigade level, there'll be sort of a lot of broad scale activity happening during the course of that week. Amphibious assaults, the attacks happen in, I believe, so 2 initial waves, wave 1, 1, 2, but I think there's also a 3rd wave. I'll need to double check that. I quickly skimmed through this. So there is sort of a brief invasion phase of sorts, nicely summarized on 1 page. Movement, pretty straightforward. There are these off-map boxes which the Americans can move to. I mentioned the Cherbourg box, which is a priority. The Americans absolutely have to drive on Cherbourg. It's their requirement. They lose the game if they don't. There's the Brittany box down in the southwest, and then the eastern exit box as well. I haven't really looked through combat in great detail, but it's basically odds-based. You can draw on support, and there are column shifts for, here they are, apply column shifts for terrain, prepared offensive, combined arms, bombing support, and then weather effects as well. Step losses, retreats, advance after combat, special rules for the strong points and ops battalions, Special rules for the abstraction of the situation in Cherbourg. There are bocage and city rules. I've mentioned sort of the combat support elements. There are various different types of support and the way they affect combat. And then of course we have a fairly simple supply rules, which is great for this scale. And supply effects, isolating Cherbourg, and then attrition. And folks, that is it. So really we're looking at 23 minus 7, looking about 16 pages of nicely illustrated, very clear. My impression thus far reading through this online is that it is a relatively clearly, everything thus far has been very clear to grasp. So I am super looking forward. This is, I've got to get this to the table. So this is going to be the next thing, straight off the back of Atlantic War. We're zooming out and we're going to look at the Dark Summer, Normandy, 1944. Happy to answer any questions if anyone's got any. There'll be, to be honest, it's going to be a busy weekend, but hope to start setting this up early next week. So yeah, stay tuned if you want to know more about how this all works. I think that covers everything. So thanks again, everyone. This is again Ted Raicer's The Dark Summer, Normandy 1944, just published by GMT Games in 2021. Thanks, everyone.